Hey guys, this is Chaos Chrono. I'm back with another episode. Today I'm going to do something special. So with it being in the new year, I was thinking that, hey, what if we open an entire display? I didn't have the stuff to do so before, but, well, for Age of Ascension, I came across some product, and we got ourselves an entire display to open up. For this video, it's going to be a bit different. Instead of going through individual cards, as I think a lot of people are familiar with the cards in the set and there is no enhancements, so I won't be opening each deck. I'm going to take all these decks, open them all up, leaving them in their original wrapping. I'm going to take a guess based off of the houses and order them accordingly. Then I'm going to go through each individual deck. Since I'll be making this a video, I'll make this a bit easier to see, taking the images available on decks of Keyforge to showcase each card. From there, we'll do a rating as usual, and then do a comparison at the very end, but I won't be scanning the decks until then. So this will be a new approach for me too, so let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, if this is a format that works for you guys. As I'll have 12 decks in this video, but going forward it'll be one deck at a time using this new format. So let me know what you guys think, and without further ado, let's get started on opening this all up. Alright, so I do have a specific order, just to make some notes on whether or not this theory that we have of middle decks being better, if it holds true. So my order of pulling is 1. Got a lot to open, so let's fast forward again. Okay, so with all these opened, I'm gonna take a marker and write their deck number on the back. Alright, so with those labeled, let's sort them based off of houses. So there's going to be some synergies between certain houses compared to with others, so I do take that into consideration. Brobnar has been strong in this set, so I'm going to kind of put them together. I don't like the Brobnar Untamed combo, which is in all of these decks, unfortunately, and this is duplicated. The logo's this Untamed. This is always a nice set of houses that I like to see, but in AOA it's questionable. Untamed wasn't in its peak in this set. This is kind of tough. Because there's so many duplicates, it's actually hard to decide based purely on houses what to look for. So with that being said, I guess I'm going to have to look at them one by one.
Alright, so we're starting with the Warlock that Mourns Anarchy. Taking a look at the breakdown of the deck. Got the pictures loaded up on the screen, just to make it clear for everybody. Looking at Amber Generation, there are 10 pips of Amber in this deck. Then we have the War Chest, Full Moon, and Mimicry that could potentially generate some more. So those add up to an estimate of 13 Amber Generation. Amber control is pretty limited here. We're looking at the Iron Obelisk, Take Hostages, Doorstep to Heaven, and also just to support Summaries and Barrister Joya to prevent a little bit of reaping. So I'm estimating about a 5. There is no artifact control in this deck. And for creature control, actually pretty decent here. So between the 1-2 punches, Bramo into the fray, Pound, Tremor, Gargantus Scrapper, and Brobnar, Smite, Sanctum, and Save the Pack. The straight up removal is estimated about a 10. Speed is pretty slow. I think that's a common trend in this set, as we'll see going over the next couple of decks. We have Punctuated Equilibrium that helps move our deck along, though it kind of does influence the opponent the same way. And in terms of chains, we have Save the Pack. So I'm estimating about a 2 for speed. Again, like, number doesn't really matter, but as long as we understand that the pacing of the deck is just fairly straightforward, nothing that enhances the speed of it or cycling or anything like that. Highlights wise, we do have an epic quest with 4 knights. It's been a while since I've seen an epic quest deck. I did have one in the first set that did give me a win in a locals sealed event, but I haven't really pulled any epic quest decks that were particularly good per se after that. In terms of the SAS value for this deck, I'm estimating about a 60. I'm going to move through the rest of the decks in a fairly quick manner, just to give the overview of all the estimations, and then we'll do a comparison to what the Decks of Keyforge website rated each deck as well. Next deck is the Beast that barbecues insects. Kinda gross, but hey. Looking at Amber Generation again, we have 10 pips once again. And in terms of Amber support for Generation, we have the effect of Mars first on top of the Amber pip that it has on it. The Amber Spine Mongrel that can potentially generate for us, and of course Flaxia. So just to be conservative, I'm estimating the Amber Generation about 12. This is just from playing the effects of the cards, not including any sort of reaping from creatures. Amber Control is definitely better than the first deck. We have Nizek Resonator, Bobade, Borden, 2 Maruks, Take Hostages, and Doorstep, all really good for controlling either Amber costs or the opponent's Amber. And I'm estimating about an 8 for that. Once again, there is no artifact control in this deck either. Unfortunately, I feel like that's a common trend in a lot of decks, at least in the first couple of sets. Moving on to creature control, we have a decent amount here as well. In terms of removal, we have Beam Buckler, Orbital Bombardment, Plague Master, 2 Smites, Persistence Hunting, they're everywhere, and Nature's Call. And secondary would be Collector Worm with Fight ability, Mind Worm with also a Fight ability, and Shock Worm, just to stun things that are on the board. So overall, control is pretty decent, rating it about a 10, just to be conservative. Speed-wise, we have Song of Spring and Proliferator that tends to affect this stat. Overall, not too much, so the speed is still pretty low at roughly a 3. Second deck, and it's another epic quest deck with 4 knights once again. So not built around this, but it's nice to have a key cheat in here. There's also a Chota Hazri in Untamed. And the double dust switch helps make that consistent as well. So those are fun pieces to look at. SAS wise, I'm giving this deck about a 64. Next deck is Pilar, Monsieur, Moleman, Fabius. Amber Generation, we have 10 pips in this deck, and supporting cards are Misery Exploit, Healing Blast, Darna, Full Moon, and Life Web. The total for Amber Generation, conservatively measured, is about 16. For Amber Control, we have 2 Charettes, a Flash of Broken Dreams, Maruk, and Life Web. Supporting cards are Amber Imp, Gold Imp, Sorcerer, and Heart of the Forest. Some of those kind of fall in other categories, not exactly Amber Control, but in some way support this function. So overall, conservative estimate is about a 7 for Amber Control. Artifact Control, we do have some in the shape of Rustnar. Just the one, so I think I remember this being a 0.5 value overall. Just because, like, it's hard to pull it off, really. You need to fight, survive the fight, and then destroy the artifact. In Creature Control, Hysteria, Soulkeeper, 2 Smites, Spirit Way, Persistence Hunting, and 2 Quicksand. So pretty straight up good removal cards there. In terms of creatures, there aren't too many that are particularly strong, but the 2 Lion Botrums will help. So overall, the creature control I'm rating at about a 10. Speed, once again, is very slow, estimating about a 1, pretty much because of Glimmer. Also, there's some disruption going on, but not a key focus. Highlights of this deck, definitely Heart of the Forest, as some decks just revolve around that. And this deck does have a key chart, with some potential to ramp up an Amber and Untamed. So there is a play here for Heart of the Forest, and funny thing is, with how Heart of the Forest works in your end game, Gold Key Imp kind of is a redundant card, and could cause issues in some ways. Overall, this deck has some tools. Not the most ideal, but the best so far. So I'm rating this deck at about a 65. Moving on to deck number 4. We have Cobalt, Jimcester, Supplicant. Looking at Amber Generation, we have 11 pips. And for supporting cards for Amber Generation, we have Healing Blast, 2 Gamgees, a Swindle, 2 Umbras, a Brand, and a Full Moon. Estimating up to about 20 for Amber Generation. For Amber Control, we have Obade, Gatekeeper, 2 Gamgees, Swindle, 2 Umbras, and Brand. And since the Life for Life is in the deck as well, that's going to be pretty consistent. And supporting, we have Summaries. So for Amber Control, we have about an 8. Artifact Control, once again, we have Rustnar coming in clutch for some Artifact Control. In terms of Creature Control, we have Life for Life, Sucker Punch, Lethal Distraction, Persistence, and Save the Pack with They're Everywhere. And for support in combat, we have 2 Golden Auras and Shield of Justice. The overall Creature Control, I'm rating about an 8. For speed, we have the Ambassador and Dust Chronicles. Counting them individually as about a 1.5, bringing the speed up to about a 3. And for highlights of this deck, we have a double Grey Rider. And with those 2 Golden Auras, that's a pretty fun combo to pull off, hitting the rule of 6 for sure if you need them to fight. Or if there's an empty board, then you can use them to reap. The traditional Brand with Life for a Life is always nice to see. And once again, we have double Dusk Witch. I'm seeing a lot of double Dusk Witches. In terms of the SAS, rating this one definitely higher than everything we've seen so far, just in the nature of having decent Amber Control. The Shadows just bringing in some value. 2 bad pennies kind of suck, but c'est la vie. So SAS, I'm estimating about a 68. Here's deck number 5. We have Dis, Mars, and Untamed. Looking at Amber Generation, we have 8 pips. And for supporting cards, we have Schuler, Mars First, Harvester, and Darna. That brings up the total to about a 12 in my mind. For Amber Control, once again, it's a pretty lacking number. We have Schuler, Anguish, and Gromid for Amber Control. Nothing else really changes key cost or affects the opponent's Amber pile in any way, which is pretty unfortunate. So for Control, rating about a 4 just because there's some support cards like the Amber Spy Mongrel, Amber Conduction Unit, and Amber Imp. It's just reasons or ways to slow down generation on the opponent's side, affecting the creatures. But all in all, the highest I would rate it is about a 4 for Amber Control. Once again, we don't have any Artifact Control in this deck. And for Creature Control, we have Hysteria, Unlock Gateway, Nocturnal Maneuver, which is a legacy card, a Persistence Hunting, Nature's Call, and for support we have Mourns, Mindworm, or 2 of Mindworms, and the Red Planet Raygun for Creature Control. There's a couple other cards like Martian Hound that, increase power, Grows Keepers, and things like that, just to supplement creatures' powers to improve fighting. So that's always useful. So for overall Creature Control, I'm rating it at about a 10 as well. And moving on to speed, we have Witch of the Wilds, Glimmer, and Regrowth helping with improving our speed. And we have Binding Irons to slow down the opponent. So overall, the speed is still pretty limited at looking at our own, rating it about a 4. And for the SAS value, just because Amber Generation is low, Amber Control is really limited, Creature Control is really all it's got going for it. Speed's also pretty slow. I'm looking at about a 56. The lowest so far. Also, I hate seeing double Amber Imp, but they're common and very likely to be seen. Moving on to deck number 6. We we have Miss Exice, the Ephemeral Sorcerer. Looking at Amber Generation, we have 11 pips of Amber, so pretty decent for AOA. Supporting cards, we have the Brig combo, which is always nice to see. Cutthroat Research, 2 Full Moons, Flaxia, and Rustnar. And only if, you know, you destroy an artifact with Amber on it with the Rustnar, so that's not always a given. That brings my estimate for Amber Generation to about a 20. For Amber Control, we do have just the Cutthroat and Interdimensional Graph, which is pretty limiting for Amber Control. Unfortunately, Brobnar didn't bring anything to the table for that, so we're stuck with just the logos. Artifact Control, we do have a value of 1, coming from the 2 Rustnars that are in Untamed. For Creature Control, we have quite a lot of that. 2 copies of 1-2 Punch, Bramo, First Blood, Flamethrower, 2 Standardized Testings, 3 Pokes, they're everywhere, and Signal Fire. But Signal Fire is more of a support card, allowing you to use your Brobnar to fight on an off Brobnar turn. Looking at all these cards, the overall value for Creature Control looks to be about a 12. In my mind, could be higher, but at the same time, the style of board clear in Standardized Testing is unfortunately going to hit yourself quite a bit as well, with those weaker logos and Untamed creatures and the stronger Brobnar creatures like the Double Lock. For speed, we have Library of Babel. Questionable speed additions from the 3 Pokes because you'd have to destroy the creature in order for it to actually give you that value. And we have 2 Titan Librarians that help you archive. So overall, I'll give the speed about a 5, even though the only thing that's consistently going to give you speed is Library of Babel. Poke every now and then when it does hit will probably generate you 1 as well. So estimate about a 5 for speed. Overall SAS, I'm looking at about 60. For deck number 7, we have Hizlan, Soft Cheetah, Woo. We have Dis, Logos, and Untamed. For Amber Generation, we're looking at 12 pips. For supporting cards, we have Schuler, Fair Game, Hecatomb, Binate Rupture, Cutthroat Research, Darna, 2 Full Moons, and Rustnar. Again, questionable gains off Rustnar. The total Amber Generation then comes to about a 22. Amber Control, we're looking at Lash, Schuler, and the 2 Cutthroats. Again, pretty limiting Amber Control, so that's totals about a 5. But this deck does have something that we haven't been seeing much of before, and that's Artifact Control. We have Poltergeist, Remote Access, and 2 Grasping Vines in this deck, all getting rid of artifacts one way or another. That is a pretty good number for Artifact Control for a deck in this set. Unfortunately, that means it took away from another number, which is Creature Control. We have Hysteria, Hecatomb, since it does affect all Disc creatures, Persistence Hunting, and they're everywhere. Total of about 5 for Creature Control. But with that being said, we do have one of the faster decks so far. So for speed, we have Igor, Helperbot, 2 Hexpians, Professor Sutterkin, CYX Researcher, Time Traveler, and Help from Future Self, and Witch of the Wilds. Overall speed, I'm estimating about a 12. Again, I never really took a look at the rating values of how we hit 20-something speed for some decks. But yeah, I might need to look into that so I have a better idea. Other things that affect speed against the opponent, we have Binding Irons, which give them chains, so that's sweet. We have Double Tesmal, which is always fun for a lockout, potential lockout win, and Fog Bank that prevents fighting. So overall SAS for this deck, I'm gonna rate it about a 68 as well. Even though a lot of those numbers aren't exactly the best, the speed with generation, at least there's a path for this deck that looks promising. Moving on to deck number 8, we have Bitlanche, the Master Titan. Looking at Amber Generation, we have 8 pips of Amber, And supporting cards include Flex, Misery Exploit, Mind Warper, Mars Needs Amber, and Hecatomb. So that brings up the estimation to about 14. And for Amber Control, we have 2 Groaks, the Grunt Buggy, 2 Charettes, Mars Needs Amber, Mind Warper, and Nizek. So overall, Amber Control is pretty good. Spans all 3 houses, and I'm giving it about a 10 in total. Unfortunately, once again, there is no artifact control. Creature control, we have 2 copies of 1/2 Punch, Unlock Gateway, Gunguzel, Hecatomb, Tixel, Beam Buckler, Hypno Beam, and for support, we have 2 Mindworms, Zorg, Bingo Bang Bang, Calfine, and 2 Shockworms. So overall, creature control is actually pretty decent, rating it at about a 10. For speed, we have, again, a slower deck. We have Sound the Horns, Not Finished With You, Old Jerk, and Think Drone that kind of help you cycle, archive, and whatnot. All in all, not the strongest source of speed, since Old Jerk is just discarding, so you can draw more for your next turn, but doesn't necessarily help you play more. And then Not Finished With You is bringing creatures back from the discard pile, which, I mean, like a Rise, it's been counted to increase speed, but in my mind, it's not necessarily true speed. So overall rating is still low and about a 3. SCS wise, I think this feels about a 60 to me. We'll see how accurate my feelings are at the end of the day. So deck number 9, we have Ranger, Svip, Orangevich. For Amber generation, we have 8 pips of Amber, so not too great. Supporting cards like Fuzel, Eureka, Darna, Teliga, and Rustnar to potentially generate more. So I'm estimating about a 12 expected Amber. Again, you can set up for more generation than just that, but I like to be conservative. Look at a deck at potentially its worst. For Amber Control, this is the bad part. We have Burn the Stockpile. That is it. Teliga kind of works in that way, that the opponent has to pay you to play creatures when she's out, but, you know, what's the odds she's going to stick around that long, right? So Amber Control, I'm just listing at about a 2 between those 2 cards. Artifact Control, we do have both a Rustnar and Grasping Vines. So there's a way to get rid of an artifact on the board, but unfortunately that's very temporary compared to Rustnar, which is just harder to hit, but if it hits, then you can actually move it for a bit longer. Creature control, we have a good amount. We have 1/2 Punch, 2 Coward's Ends, Tremor, a Bellowing Patrazate, Bouncing Deathfork, Persistence Hunting, Quicksand, and Ink of the Spider. In addition, for fighting purposes, we have Lollip, Relentless Assault, and of course we have Teliga for when they want to play creatures, but maybe they can't because she's out on the board and they have no Amber. That's always fun. Overall creature control, I'm looking at about a 12. Next, we'll move on to speed. We have 2 Hexpians, Lab Work, Library of Babel, Eureka, Sloppy Lab Work, and the Penseed, all to improve our speed overall. However, we do have 2 Coward's Ends that bring about 3 chains each, so that can cancel out some of that speed that we could generate. So I'm looking at about a 5. Again, this number could be higher just depending on how much you value each of those cards. But for myself, I'm still thinking this is not that fast. Overall, for SAS, I'm rating this deck at about a 61. Moving on to deck number 10, we have Steelhona, the Commander of Keys, with Dis, Mars, and Sanctum. In terms of Amber generation, we have 6 pips, and supporting cards include Dust Imp, 3 Mind Warpers, and an Oath of Poverty, with 3 artifacts in the deck. And given one of them is Wretched Doll, that's definitely going to be one of the ones that you burn. Overall, for Amber generation, I'm totaling at about a 13 for a playthrough of the deck, not including Reaps, of course. Amber control, we are looking at Charette, 3 Mind Warpers, Aubade, Baruch, 2 Surmeros, 2 Take Hostages, and support cards include Amber Imp, Silver Key Imp, Amber Conduction Unit, giving us a total about a 10 for Amber control, which is pretty good. Artifact control, once again, we have nothing. Creature control, we have Call the Weak, Key to Dis, Wretched Doll, which counts unfortunately, Tixel Beam Buckler, Blinding Light, and for support we have the Amber Imps, Agent Poohman, Collector Worm, Mind Worm, and the 2 Lion Bottoms to improve power for creature fights. All in all, rating it about a 7 for creature control. In terms of speed, we have Big Fat 0. Nothing really impacts speed in this deck, so we'll just leave it at that. In terms of highlights, once again we have a double Tasmal. The cool part is we have the double Rathias. I think that's a rare. Is that a rare? Yeah, or uncommon at least. Uncommon. So that's pretty cool. And we have a Maverick Lion Botrom in Mars. So those are some fun pieces in this deck. But all in all, unfortunately, it's not going to be all that competitive. I'm rating it at about a 60. Moving on to the second last deck, deck number 11. We have Discodrain, Murphey-Rojas, Scribe. Looking at the Amber generation, we have 12 pips of Amber, one of the higher ones. We have supporting cards including 2 Mind Warpers, Harvester, 2 Ronnies, an Umbra, 2 Yantigans, and Guard Disguise. Overall, expected Amber is about 20. For Amber control, we have Broke, Screech Bomb, 2 Mind Warpers, 2 Ronnies, Umbra, 2 Yantigans, and Guard Disguise once again, bringing the total Amber control to about 11. For artifact control, we have nothing. Once again, no artifact control. Creature control, looking pretty good. We have 1-2 Punch, First Blood, the Flamewake Shaman, 2 Carpet Foxums, 2 Containment Fields, Orbital Bombardment, 2 Life for Lifes, Sucker Punch, and for support we have 2 Calfines, Ogopogo, Rock Hurling Giant, paired up with the 2 Gang of Chieftains, and Key Abduction actually counts too, but only if you're playing against Mars. Overall, the creature control looks to be pretty strong, and I'm estimating about a 16. For speed, we're once again lacking. The only thing that really helps is the Dust Chronicles, and I'm just going to give them 1 point each, so a total of speed of 2. Overall, looking to be a pretty standard deck, but well balanced and has most of the important things covered. So I'm actually going to rate this one as a pretty solid 70. Moving on to the very last deck, we have Myrin, Genesis, Caterien. For Amber Generation, we're looking at 6 pips with supporting cards like Dust Imp, Misery Exploit, the Harvester, and 2 Full Moons, bringing us a total of about 12 for Amber Generation. Still very low though. For Amber Control, unfortunately it's even lower. We have the Lash of Broken Dreams and Anguish. Those are the only 2 cards that really affect Amber on the opponent's side, so that's pretty unfortunate. Once again, for Artifact Control, there is none. For Creature Control, we have 2 Unlock Gateways, which in my opinion is very unfortunate it's one of the worst board wipes in my mind. It just resets the board and gives initiative to the opponent, which is kind of bad. We have Life Ward, so at the very least, that can cancel out the Unlock Gateway to a degree, so the opponent can't play new creatures, they don't get initiative on the board, but that only happens once. Wretched Doll once again makes an appearance, which is a near useless artifact for the time being, at least until Doom counters become something a bit more prevalent in this game. Carpet Flux, Hypno Beam, they're everywhere. With Save the Pack is a nice combination. And we have Perilous Wilds as well for creature control. Supporting cards include Mindworm, Stem Ranger, and Stormcrawler. Overall creature control, I'm looking at about an 8. In terms of speed, the Proliferator can count towards this. Incubation Chamber for sure. Martian Generosity most definitely. Glimmer and Regrowth to a very small degree. So overall speed, I'm going to rate at about a 6. It's still better than some other decks that we've seen so far today, but still pretty lacking overall. Highlight of this deck is double Tasmal. So I think this might be the 3rd deck out of the display that had double Tasmal. Pretty cool combo. Again, a lockout is possible, and there's a bunch of taunts in this deck, or essentially just the Dominators. But having 2 Dominators is more than enough to cover for the 2 Tesmals. And of course, Martian Generosity is a key part here as well. Unfortunately, with limited Ember Generation, you're going to be hard-pressed to make Martian Generosity hit as hard as it should. And it's not a Jenka deck, so it's not like you can make use of those extra cards for key cheating. There is no key cheat at all in this deck, actually, so yeah. Overall, pretty slow deck. Like, it has some speed, but Martian Generosity doesn't really hit that well with such little Ember Pips and Generation. The board control wipes your own side as well, so yeah, overall, not looking too good with the final deck of this display. So I'm rating this deck at about a 53. So with that, we have covered all 12 decks in this display. I'm going to go ahead now and scan all the decks, see if my ratings are remotely close to the decks of Keyforge rating. And overall, I'm glad to be looking back into the set since, one, I'm excited to try to find a Jenka. I do have several other displays to look through, so this is a nice opportunity to try out a new format for the content as well. It's a lot more legwork, I think, but it saves me the trouble of having to open and repackage decks, if any. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below about this style of video. If this format is something you enjoy, I definitely feel like I can go through the specs of each deck a lot more quickly and efficiently because I take that rating process and do it off camera. So I can really think about the details and jot down my notes and share that with you guys. And then I'll follow up with the actual scanning of the decks and looking it up online to see how it compares. Versus doing it all on the fly in the moment and I'll miss a few things. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. If this is a good format or not. If you prefer the other format that I was doing and do the decks individually. Going forward, I might use this format for every deck individually. So then maybe I'll talk a little slower and give myself a little bit of a breather. Maybe go into a bit more detail in terms of what combinations of stuff each deck has because I didn't really go into that specifically for this display. So again, let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing to help support this channel. I definitely take every suggestion to heart and try to use that to improve the content that I'm creating. So do let me know what you all think about this new format, and if going display at a time is something you guys want to see, or the deck by deck with the new format, or keeping it the old format as with the Mass Mutations set, whichever you prefer. So with that being said, thank you all for watching, and as always, be kind and happy forging.